only on the zone. August 16th, Moses Itauma, the next heavyweight superstar, faces his greatest challenge, Whyte. Back to remind the world he's not done yet. Itauma versus Whyte. Click the link in the description to buy.
Alright, so apparently Oleksandr Usyk is now injured. Now, it would be very ambitious to think that Oleksandr Usyk will be back this side of 2025, to be honest with you, given the fact that he's just literally fought Daniel Dubois a couple of weeks ago, and he is really, I mean, to get Usyk twice a year, you're doing pretty well, very well. It's normally a once a year type of a fighter, so to even insinuate or think that we get him again this year out for a real fight, yeah, unlikely. So, and he has been Oleksandr Usyk since he's moved up to heavyweight. You may actually remember there was a couple of times before he fought Chez Witherspoon, because Witherspoon wasn't the original opponent. When Usyk moved up to heavyweight, that's when the injury started flaring. I believe he had a bicep injury, he might have had another injury or something like that. He's had a few niggles, in particular since he comes to heavyweight. Now, the talk is, and this is what Frank Warren is saying, that Usyk has applied for an exemption from the WBO to essentially what it is kick the can down the road again further for his respective fight with Joseph Parker. Now, at the end of the day, right, the mandatory system, whether you like it or don't like it, it's there. I personally like the mandatory system. I think it's important that we do have it. I think that for a voluntary defense, you're essentially getting the short end of the stick, fair enough. You are getting the short end of the stick in a mandatory sense as well, but there is that little bit more in place for the fighter who is the mandatory. You know, he gets his split, whether it be 20-25%, that's what you're getting, as opposed to a voluntary, God knows what it could be. And with a voluntary, you have to sign a rematch clause. You have to. There's no ifs. Well, you don't have to, but it's standard practice with a voluntary. It's very rare. I can't even think of instances where there's been a voluntary defense and there hasn't been a rematch clause. There normally always is. And that's standard practice. With a mandatory, I don't like seeing it nowadays because it is starting to creep its way in. It's been creeping in since the Vladimir Klitschko days, really. A mandatory was you beat the champion, it's it, it's over. That's it, no comeback. Unless it was very controversial, like a really controversial decision or something like that. Normally, if you beat the champion, that's it, you sail off into the sunset. He then has to go and earn a crack at you. And I like that. I do like that system. Now, the mandatory system in the heavyweight division over the last, years now. I mean, it probably, since 2019, really, we've started to see the problems in place with the mandatory system because the fighters in the division have been chasing Undisputed, and Usyk obviously came out on top. I don't even think he was in the heavyweight division when Anthony Joshua got beat by Andy Ruiz. But that's when all the rematches kind of really started. Now, Joshua Ruiz, that was a voluntary, fair enough. Then you had the Wilder Fury. I remember the first fight was definitely a voluntary. I'm not sure if the second fight was. I can't remember off the top of my head if it was a mandatory or a voluntary. I think the WBA or WBC did order it, so maybe it was a mandatory, I don't know. But that had another flipping rematch clause in it. Then Usyk beats Joshua, which was a mandatory rematch. It's held everything up. So now we have an undisputed champion, Oleksandr Usyk, who has mandatories left, right, and centre, and they're long overdue. The last WBO mandatory was Oleksandr Usyk 4 years ago. The last IBF mandatory, correct me if I'm wrong, I may very well be wrong, was 5 years ago, Kubrat Pulev. The last WBA mandatory was 2 years ago, and the last WBC mandatory, Dylan Whyte. So you see what I mean? There's a big build-up. So the mandatories are long overdue. Joseph Parker's been waiting for that fight for a long time, and I suspect if the WBO don't give Oleksandr Usyk that exemption to, essentially you're kicking the can down the road. That's essentially what you're doing. And if they don't do it, then I would imagine he'll probably vacate. I suspect maybe there was an element of that. Maybe he was looking for an exemption. Again, I don't know. I'm only speculating here. Last year with the IBF, because he obviously had the Fury rematch penciled in, booked in, signed, nothing you could do. I guess he probably knew, right was on the wall with them, get rid of that belt, because it's just, there's nothing you can do. It's not going to happen. Maybe he's hoping with the WBO they'll be a bit lenient with him, because you got to bear in mind that was Usyk's sanctioning body. He fought for the WBO title. That was the first title he won the world title for at cruiserweight. He was their mandatory at heavyweight at WBO. So he's always had a good relationship with the WBO, to be fair. But given the fact that it's Joseph Parker, a Frank Warren fighter, and we know Frank and the WBO, they're like that, I'd imagine they won't give Usyk the exemption. And to be honest with you, I really would like to see Usyk fight Joseph Parker next. I really would, if he does carry on fighting. If he does, personally, preference would be retire. You've done it. Complete boxing, see you later. You're done. There's nothing else to gain. What else is there? You're not going to gain anything else. If he does stick around, I'd like to see him fight Joseph Parker. I'd like to see them order that fight. I'd like to see Usyk carry on and go ahead with it, rather than take on a Tyson Fury again in a trilogy fight, which is just, for me, it's pointless at this stage. There's no need. There's no need to run it back a third time. What's the point? It makes no sense. I'd like to see that. If he doesn't want to, if they don't give him the exemption, then he should be stripped or vacate, as far as I'm concerned. I know what some people are saying. Oh, but it's Usyk. It doesn't matter. You know, Usyk signed the rematch clause for Anthony Joshua. He knew this was, and obviously Fury. I'm not going to necessarily blame them all on that. I know Fury did mess him around a bit as well. You know, even in the run up to, because Anthony Joshua was talking about taking step aside money back in 2021, and you know, we all know what happened there. But yeah, I think they should strip him. I think that at the end of the day, undisputed champions are seldom undisputed for long, unless you're Canelo Alvarez. They normally will end up getting stripped sooner or later, and the division at the end of the day has to move on. You know, Usyk has been brilliant. He's been phenomenal. He's been the standard bearer for the division. He's near the end, if he's not already at the end in terms of, you know, foot out the door. Let's get the division moving on. You know, let's get Joseph Parker, see who he fights in his first defence, because he'll be elevated to full champion. Caballela's WBC interim champion. IBF have a final eliminator ordered. Derek Chisora's high up there. Don't know what the WBA are doing, but I don't want to know what they're doing, but Jesus Christ, God only knows actually when I think about it. But you know what I mean? They need to get a move on. Mandatory system, back to the way it was. Let the division move on. Because there's great fights to be made in the heavyweight division still. There's great names coming through. Itauma, Torres, etc. All of these. Let's get a move on. Dubois coming back. Let's get a move on. That's what I think. So Oleksandr Usyk, the fact that he's looking for the exemption, that tells me he's looking to fight again. So if you are here thinking maybe he's going to retire, no, the fact he's looking for an exemption probably tells me he's looking to fight again. Or maybe he's just no interest in negotiating right now, given it's so soon after his last fight with Daniel Dubois. It's only a couple of weeks ago. It's not even a month ago. So maybe he's just like, you know what, boxing, don't want to know, don't talk to me. I know I've been ordered it, but I am not going to talk anything boxing until maybe September time, when I've had a break, I've caught up with my family, all that. Maybe that's what the exemption is. Maybe that's what he means. Maybe he fully intends to fight Joseph Parker, but it's just like, listen, I am not getting into negotiations until I am ready. I might intend on fighting him next year, maybe next February, maybe next March, but we're negotiating when I'm ready. I am not talking boxing. I've spent the last God knows how much time going on about boxing. I'll talk about boxing when I'm ready. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think is going to happen? Usyk apparently injured. Should he be stripped? Should he not? Let me know. Hope you enjoyed it, people. Peace.